I leaned against the bar without thinking. The music pulsed in waves around us, but I wasn't dancing. Not anymore. Not since he walked in. The glass in my hand sweated with condensation, mirroring the way my skin prickled the second I caught his gaze again, soft but unwavering. Like he was trying to remember something I never let him forget. He crossed the room slower than he needed to, drink in hand, conversation with someone else already dissolving behind him. And when he stopped next to me, just close enough to blur the edges of personal space, I felt the pull of old gravity. Dangerous, familiar. I didn't look at him right away. I let the silence bloom. Then I did it again. I shifted my weight, slowly, deliberately, and leaned just a bit further into the bar. Nothing scandalous. Just emotion. A shape. But I knew what it did to him. I always had. And that's when he said it. "If you do that again," he murmured, low so only I could hear, "I won't be able to resist." My breath caught. Not just from the words, but from how he said them. Like he'd already crossed a line in his mind, like he wanted me to know he was standing on the edge, balancing between memory and mistake. But then, a stillness behind us. I turned my head, slow as guilt. She was there. His girlfriend. Frozen just inside the open terrace door, her gaze locked not on him, but on me. I'll never forget the way her smile didn't fade. It just stopped belonging to the moment. And just like that, everything changed. I hadn't seen him in almost 3 years. We used to be close, dangerously close. One of those friendships that always flirted with becoming something else. Too many late nights, too many almosts. But before anything ever fully happened, I left town. Life, work, a fresh start. I disappeared, and we let it go, or so I thought. Now here we were again. Same circle of friends, same bar we used to haunt like restless ghosts, only now, he had a girlfriend. And she wasn't just anyone. Olivia. Kind, funny, maybe a little too perfect. I'd met her once, back when they first started dating. She welcomed me back tonight with a hug and a compliment. And I meant it when I said she seemed lovely. But then he looked at me, really looked, and all those years vanished. Like we were back at that house party when he almost kissed me in the hallway but didn't. Like that night at the lake when he helped me dry off and his hands lingered too long on my shoulder. Now every glance felt like a question. And I was answering. When I leaned into that bar, I wasn't teasing. Not exactly. I wasn't trying to cause anything. But I also wasn't innocent. I knew how it would look. How it would feel. And when he whispered those words, the world slowed. My skin buzzed. My chest tightened. His breath had brushed my ear, not quite a touch, but almost worse. But now Olivia was standing there. Watching. Trying to put the pieces together. He stepped back from me, almost imperceptibly. Not enough to make it better. Just enough to pretend. She walked toward us with that same smile, stretched thin now, sharp at the edges. And I knew instantly this wasn't over. This was the beginning. The party moved around us like nothing had happened. Laughter, glasses clinking, the low thump of music pressing against the walls. But inside that little triangle, me, him, her, time was standing very still. Olivia slipped between us, light as air. She kissed his cheek, overly casual, and then turned to me with that same unnervingly polite smile. "You two catching up?" she asked. I smiled back. "Yeah. Just reminiscing." She said, her eyes never quite leaving my face. "I bet you have a lot of stories." He laughed too quickly. Nothing too wild. But the way his voice cracked on that last word told a different story. We both felt it. That static in the air, the kind that clings to your skin before a storm. She stayed close to him now, her hand resting just above his waistband. Possessive almost. He barely moved, but his eyes flicked to mine again. Just for a second. I tried to walk away. I really did. I found an excuse, wandered off toward the back hallway with my drink, needing space, air clarity. But it took less than a minute for him to follow. We ended up outside, where the night air was cooler but did nothing to settle my heart. I didn't mean to, he started, rubbing the back of his neck. "You did," I said. Quiet. Honest. He looked at me then, really looked, and his silence said more than anything else. "I shouldn't have said that to you," he added. "But you did," I repeated. This time it wasn't an accusation. It was an invitation. He stepped closer. Not enough to touch. But close enough that I could feel the warmth from his body, smell the faint traces of his cologne, something woody, like old books and pine. My hand twitched at my side. Every nerve in me was on high alert. His eyes dropped to my lips. And in that moment, the only thing louder than the music inside was the sound of everything we were trying not to do. We didn't touch. but my whole body felt like we had. Every breath was a choice. Every inch between us dangerous. I wanted to step back. I really did. Not because I didn't want him, but because I did too much. And because she was still inside. Laughing. Trusting. Wearing his scent like a promise he was already breaking. He was looking at me like he was starving. And maybe I was too. Why did you follow me out here? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He swallowed, his jaw tense. I don't know. Yeah, you do. He didn't argue. He just stood there, like if he moved, the spell would snap. And maybe he wanted it to. Maybe we both did. I'm not proud of this, he said finally. I nodded. But you don't regret it either. A long silence. The wind picked up and brushed a strand of hair across my face. He reached, instinct, not thought, and tucked it behind my ear. His fingertips grazed my cheek. Light, but the effect was instant. My breath caught. Heat shot through my spine. My legs, suddenly unsure of themselves, shifted under me. Don't, I whispered, even though everything inside me screamed for more. He didn't pull away. Not right away. Just let his hand linger a second longer than it should have. Enough to write a sentence across my skin I'd never forget. Then behind us the door creaked. Olivia. She stood there in the threshold, half-shadowed, her arms crossed. She didn't say a word. But she didn't need to. The look on her face, calm, sharp, devastating, said everything. And just like that, the fantasy shattered. But the desire? It stayed. Olivia didn't yell. She didn't storm off or throw her drink. She just stepped forward, closing the space between us with a kind of grace that made my stomach twist. I was looking for you, she said to him, her voice calm, almost sweet. And here you are. He opened his mouth. Closed it. The silence between them was heavier than any fight could have been. She turned to me next. Not cold. Not fake. Just knowing. You two were always close, she said softly. I should have known. I'm sorry, I said, because I didn't know what else to say. She tilted her head. Are you? The words weren't cruel. That's what made them cut. He reached for her then, maybe to explain, maybe to fix what couldn't be fixed, but she stepped back. No, she said. Not here. Not like this. And then she walked away. Back into the house. Back into the noise and laughter and everything that felt 1,000 miles from where we stood. He didn't follow her. He just stood there, his hands clenched into fists at his sides, his breath coming shallow. She saw it, I said. I know. She saw everything. He nodded. So did I. And then he looked at me, that same look from earlier, raw, conflicted, undone. But now there was something else in his eyes. Not just longing. Not just guilt. A kind of surrender. Like he'd stopped pretending. Like whatever came next, he was ready to fall for it. The air between us pulsed. He didn't reach for me. Not at first. Just looked deep, searching, as if everything we'd never said was written across my face. My skin felt hot, electric, like it already knew what was about to happen. His gaze stopped on my lips. A breath. Then another. And then finally, slowly, without defense, our mouths found each other. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't careful either. It was years of silence collapsing in a single breath. His lips against mine felt like a truth I'd been avoiding. Soft at first, almost reverent, then deeper. Hungry. Like he'd been tasting me in dreams. This kiss wasn't a mistake. It was a confession. My hands found his shirt, curled into the fabric like it might anchor me to something real. But nothing was real now except the thundering in my chest and the way his body leaned into mine, hesitant, then completely. When we moved, barely conscious of the path back inside, into the dim guest room down the hall, the house felt hollow. Like it had made space for what we were about to do. Clothes became whispers falling between us. His hands traced my skin like memory, like worship. And when I lay back and he came down to meet me, not just with his body, but with everything he'd ever held back, I felt the edges of myself blur. We moved together, slow, then desperate, then nothing but instinct. His breath on my neck. My back arching into him. Our bodies finding a rhythm that didn't need a name. I let go. Of reason. Of guilt. Of everything but him. Something inside me trembled, not from pleasure alone, but from the way he looked at me when he was lost in it too. Like this was more than just need. Like it was the truth we'd never dared speak aloud. And afterwards, silence. We didn't say a word. We didn't need to. Our breathing slowly returned, uneven and raw, tangled in the darkness. But something inside me had changed. Forever.